The rules are not well settled, but factors that seem like the courts would look at is who's the speaker? Is it a commercial type speaker selling products and services? Who is the audience for the speech? Are you talking just to potential customers? Or are you talking about public policy matters that affect all citizens, and your audience is the broad public? Then it ought to claim greater protection than if you're just trying to sell hot goods to a particular customer. And finally, look at the content of the speech. What is the message that you're trying to get out there? Something about public policy? Or simply give me your money and I'll sell you this stuff? In what circumstances can government restrict commercial speech? Well, I guess that's Central Hudson. Assuming that it's commercial speech and it's truthful, not misleading, then you look at the three factors under Central Hudson, and that decides whether it's protected or not. Did I leave anything out about what we covered up till now? Miss a whole subject? Nothing? Okay, so what needs to be clarified? Or what can I help you with? Saeed?
How much do you know about the other pieces that we also talked about, like Tinker and coal miner together, for example?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I guarantee you won't be on the exam a question about Tinker or coal miner. Those secondary cases, you don't need to know their names or even what they decided, but you do have to know how Morse versus Frederick was decided and essentially why. It's basically the marquee cases, the ones that I've mentioned. I don't think there won't be a question on the exam that I haven't mentioned the case today, for example. It's the principal cases that you need to know, not the ones that happen to be mentioned in other opinions. Ruby, what's up?
Oh, can you clarify the difference between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny? Is it content-based? Is that what it is?
Yes, basically the difference between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is triggered, required. The court says we should exercise strict scrutiny if the government restriction on speech is based on its content. And strict scrutiny requires the showing by the government of a compelling government interest, and the restriction must be narrowly tailored to serve that interest. Intermediate scrutiny is more relaxed scrutiny, where the court is more willing to allow the restriction because it's not based on the content of the speech. We'll exercise intermediate scrutiny in commercial cases, as we see in the broadcast area later on in the course. Broadcast restrictions, because of the nature of the medium, where government has a role in allocating the frequencies on the electromagnetic spectrum, therefore it gets to regulate the content of what's on the public airwaves. That's intermediate scrutiny. Well, and then the rules on intermediate scrutiny are like those of the time, place, and manner case, or the commercial speech. Central Hudson is an example of the intermediate scrutiny rule. It doesn't have to be a compelling interest. It does have to be narrowly tailored, but it doesn't have to be the least restrictive means available. And there have to be alternative means of communicating. Nicole? It's narrowly tailored. It really fits. It's made for this. It's not baggy. It's not baggy and overbroad. It isn't over-inclusive, sweeping within its ambit speech that you don't need to restrict in order to serve this particular interest. Like in the Stevens case, hunting videos. Well, nobody was complaining about hunting videos, even though animals are wounded and killed in those pictures. The law was overbroad, over-inclusive in that respect. Similarly, if the law is under-inclusive, like the law in the Pitt News case, where they're trying to prevent college kids from seeing ads for alcohol in their newspaper. Well, it didn't cover the other 3 newspapers distributed on campus that were not college-based newspapers, but contained alcohol ads. The government didn't do anything about that, so the law was under-inclusive. So it wasn't a narrowly tailored law that addressed the government problem in question with a narrowly tailored restriction. Yeah? Go for it.
In general, how would you recommend us use figures of speech with
How do I recommend?
How do you recommend we use figures of speech
You mean looking to other materials?
Yeah.
Something outside the course?
Yeah, outside.
You're certainly free to do that, but you get your A+ if you deal with the material that's in the reader and in the lecture. And there's no need to go beyond it. I do recommend, I don't know how many of you have experimented with, I do recommend looking at the material on the websites that are linked from the links on resources on vSpace. I mean, some of them are terrific sites that if you're confused about a case or about a concept or so on, these places will have the answers for you. The ACLU, the Supreme Court itself, OYA, which is the whole Supreme Court and all of the arguments that are on it and what the issues were and what the case was decided. And you're welcome to look at all of those and use your own resources, your own research, but you don't need to in order to ace this course. Rudy?
So the prior restraint case, government has proved immediate grave verbal harm. Immediately is causal according to the definition, or was that the court's actual definition?
Yeah, the question is in the test for when a prior restraint is possible, what do we have in mind by immediate when the government has to show grave, immediate, irreparable harm? Well, grave means serious. Harm, maybe somebody gets killed. Irreparable, we can't repair the damage. But what's immediate? Add to that. And you can look at immediate in 2 ways. One is temporally, right now. If this stuff is published, the serious harm will befall us. The sky will fall. The people will be killed. Immediately, tonight. Well, as you heard in the argument, the government lawyer, Griswold, quarreled with that idea of immediacy. It may not be tonight, it may not be next week, but it will certainly happen. And I think that the court would agree with that concept of immediacy, that by immediate means in a causal sense, that publication will, without question, directly cause the awful result. It's an immediate cause rather than it's going to happen tonight. But for our purposes, it's enough that you know that the slogan that emerges from Pentagon Papers about prior restraints is that it has to be grave, immediate, irreparable harm to national security or some other important government interest. Okay, kids, see you Tuesday.